Hello and welcome to another End User Talk podcast. I'm your hostess, Jamila, your Lady in Tech. Hello and welcome to the End User Talk podcast. This is Jamila, your hostess. Today's special guest on the show is Parris, Athena. How are you doing today, Parris?
I'm great. How are you?
You know what? I'm doing okay. Thank you so much for asking. I do want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to participate in today's discussion. Thank you so much. Very, very appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get started and get into the nitty-gritty, do you mind giving us a brief introduction of yourself, who you are?
Sure. So I'm Parris Athena. I'm creator of the hashtag movement and community Black Tech Twitter, and I'm founder and CEO of Black Tech Pipeline. And so I'm pretty much a tech recruiter and a tech consultant and a software engineer.
Wow, that's a lot. That is definitely a mouthful. You mentioned Black Tech Twitter. What was the inspiration?
Honestly, I was very new to Twitter. I had only been on for like a couple of months. And when I got onto Twitter, I noticed that there were a few Black technologists on there. And up until that point, I really didn't believe that there were a lot of Black people in tech just because I never worked with anyone who looked like me. And so when I saw that there were, I was just curious to see how many more of us were out there. And so I put out a tweet asking, what does Black Twitter in tech look like? And I didn't expect it to go anywhere. I didn't really have any followers, but it took off, which is the power of Twitter. That tweet took off when semi-viral and Black technologists from all around the world posted themselves into that tweet. It created a really long thread of like their pictures with captions of what they do in the industry. And overnight, it formed this, again, hashtag movement and community Black Tech Twitter.
Now, as a result of this movement, and that's really the best, it could be generalized as a movement or a vehicle because it basically brought life and attention and presence to individuals who are on Twitter just like yourself, wondering the same thing because there are not a lot of Black people that we assume in certain industries. Right. Now that Black Tech Twitter has been birthed, if you will, and it's made this stage, do you think it has helped with not just the presence and the introduction and awareness that there are plenty of Black people in tech, but do you think it's also been an inspiration to those who may have been considering different careers in tech? Do you think it's had anything to do with adding to that?
Oh, absolutely. I've had people reach out and tell me it has. Just knowing that there are people like you in an industry, that's really inspiring. Nobody wants to be the only one. They don't want to be one of the few. It's like, wow, there's an actual community here of people who look like me. They understand me. They're from my community. They understand my background. It's welcoming.
And that makes sense. I've had this conversation with many different Black people, both male and female, young and old, in various industries and various creative roles. And that was one of the inspirations behind me revamping my podcast. I've had a podcast for a while, but especially with the Black Lives Matter movement that took off in 2020, interestingly enough, this isn't new. It's always been there, and Black people have always existed in other spaces. But the problem is that there isn't enough of us who have center stage, if you will, letting people know that there are Black males and females in aviation, aeronautics. Most of us, we take places of entertainment. Now, even in the entertainment industry, there are other fields, there are other areas of expertise that we could be participating in. But when you are in high school, you've heard all of your life that you need to grow up and you need to have a job and you need to know what that job is. It's hard, again, for us to be able to outside of the basic roles, teaching and becoming a doctor or an athlete, to imagine something else for us to do. And it is difficult to be the one pioneering anything. So I commend you first and foremost for having that question, to yourself, but also going that further step and saying, you know what, I wonder who else is out there. Let me sound the alarm. And luckily you had a lot of people come back and they say, hey, yeah, I'm here. So
that's all it takes sometimes is like just being honest and just asking the question,
And a simple question at that, right? And then like you said, it was really just it was just on a whim. There was no not real intent behind it. I'm going to try it and let's see what happens. And look at where we are now. So that's amazing. But now, as far as the things that you do professionally, you are a consultant. So with the Black Tech Twitter hashtag, has this improved on your professional life, or how has it impacted your professional life? And
it completely, it impacted everything. It's like really strange to think about how a simple tweet can totally change your life, but it did. So, I was working as a software engineer when Black Tech Twitter went off and it got lots of attention. And from that tweet, a lot of employers reached out to me very consistently asking if I would recruit candidates from this new community that they didn't know existed into their companies. And I wasn't a recruiter and I didn't have recruiting experience, but I said yes to all of them. I saw an opportunity and I grabbed it. And so that's what I did. I did it for free for a very long time. I rounded up the community by creating a Discord and Slack community where we migrated to continue networking and building relationships with one another. And I would use those platforms to then start recruiting and asking people if they were looking for work. And if they were, I would introduce them to the employers I was working with. And through that, people were getting jobs. It was working out really well. This turned into an actual business that I do full time after a few of my recruits came back to me way later down the line, and they let me know that they left the companies that I recruited them into. And when I asked them why, they let me know that those employers weren't inclusive. It was very clear that they were just diversity hires. They weren't really given meaningful or challenging work. And they were being asked to do things like, why don't you create a Black ERG? Why don't you create a diversity group or help us with our initiatives? And they're just being asked to do things that they weren't there to do. They wanted to learn, grow, and thrive at the companies that they were working at, and they weren't getting those opportunities, so they left. And when I found that out, I felt horrible. Just, number one, it reflected really poorly on me just because I agreed to work with anyone, any company, and I didn't bother vetting them. I didn't bother asking them questions. I just said yes to all of them. And I was like, okay, I can't do that anymore. I have to be able to hold employers accountable and make sure that people are having good experiences. And that's how Black Tech Pipeline, which is now a business that I run full time, that's how that came to be. So like Black Tech Twitter, before Black Tech Pipeline, it took over my life. It was almost like a full-time job, just like kind of being head of a community. But then it turned into a full-time job. Like I left 9-to-5 life into full-time entrepreneurship. And it's been great because I've grown my network so widely. I've met so many people. I've been given so many opportunities that I could also pass along to my community members. So it's been like a very drastic life change in the most positive way.
Well, that's amazing. That's very interesting that you mentioned being able to be in the position to be a recruiter of sorts and open doors of opportunity for individuals who normally would not have had certain opportunities without this particular channel. And the fact that these companies really were not interested in being multicultural, is probably the best word to say here, within their companies. They were only trying to fill a quota. Mm-hmm. And that term diversity hire now is another one of those no words that we really don't want to be associated with. And that's so interesting that although they came to you asking you to help find qualified candidates in order to fill their quotas, they would vet them, meaning they would send these individuals through the interviewing process and have them submit resumes for a particular role. But yet they were fulfilling more of a administrative role instead of the role that they were to be hired for.
Exactly.
That's like wow, that is really interesting. But you're correct. You would definitely need to do a little bit more lines of questioning and find out what their intents are. And
Right,
even in that, even with that, you don't know if they're really going to do exactly what they said. But again, it is holding them accountable. Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, so that's where it starts for me, where I'm now vetting employers, right? But there's more to it afterwards. So I hold employers accountable after they do end up hiring someone from Black Tech Pipeline. So any employer who works with me, they agree to me staying on the job with that hire for their first 3 months. That's not very long, but it gives me some sense as to what this employer's actual intentions are. So anyone who gets hired out of Black Tech Pipeline, I stay on the job with them for their first 90 days. So what that means is I do biweekly check-ins with them just to ask them how it's going. I ask them about their experience so far. I ask if they have the tools and resources that they need to thrive in their role. They give me very transparent feedback on what's been going on. And I take that feedback and I relay it usually to their managers. And now on the employer side, I talk to them about the feedback that I received, whether it was positive or negative. And if it was negative and it requires steps to be taken to make improvement, I help those employers navigate those steps. And then we also talk about how we're going to set up that hire for success based on their goals and their needs. And if this company is struggling with their DEI practices and policies, I help them out with that as well.
Well, that's amazing. You're a full network there. So that's a number of different areas. Actually, they're very important to address because people need jobs and people need also development and improvement, and also the ability to be considered for other positions or roles. Of course, we are still adding to our resume. So we definitely want the benefit of the doubt and also receive the necessary development, training, coaching, and development, if you will, wherever we are,
Right.
whether this is a long-term or short-term project or career. Well, I like that. That is amazing. So it also not only keeps the company accountable, it also keeps that new hire accountable as well. Everybody's supported.
Exactly.
And covered, well-rounded. Wow, that is amazing. I like that.
Thank you.
We are in 2021 now. 2020 was, to say the least, a nightmare.
Yeah, definitely.
It was a nightmare. In most cases, we go through things in a calendar year, and you're going to have your ups and you're going to have your downs, right? It's expected. But it seems that 2020 unearthed behaviors, acts, conversations that are simultaneously public, private, or ironically, in that it's unspoken about how deeply racism is practiced or felt, but inappropriate to discuss or express, right? We know it's there. It's that proverbial elephant in the room. But because we are a social media age, people for some reason felt that this was now and I can express myself. I can do whatever. We've coined phrases now, Karens.
Mm-hmm.
We saw so much destructive behavior now. Now, when it states, and you can apply this both personally and professionally, but I want to focus on a professional here. Mm-hmm. These individuals who took it upon themselves to express how unhappy they are or how proud of their heritage or their race they are. And they've expressed this publicly. Now, we find out that these people own companies or they represent companies. How do you look at someone, or how do you move forward now knowing that Bob or Jane has put their true feelings about you being a person of color on the world stage? how do you move on and address, or what is the expectation between you and that person going forward? More on a professional.
I guess on a professional level, and is this in terms of like if I happen to be working with this type of person?
Yeah, I think that would be a better gauge. Yes, because it's
yeah, it really depends. So I do not like to interact with people like that. I don't feel like wasting my time trying to teach people like that. Now, if this is, I'm maybe consulting for a company and this is the person I'm reporting to and this is how they feel, then we're going to have that conversation because that's my job. And I will only have that conversation if they are willing to listen, to understand, and not to debate with me. And this is, again, I don't know what type of role this person has, but this is something I would even report outside of them. I would let, maybe their leadership team know. I would let, an executive know. It really depends, because when you have someone like that in a professional setting, regardless of what position they hold, it's toxic. It's uncomfortable, and it's, there's so many different feelings that come with that. It's, I don't know. This is something I would report. I would make sure that there is an understanding that this person has this point of view that affects me personally. It affects my community. And not only that it affects me, it's dangerous, right? And that's not okay. And is everyone entitled to their own opinion? Yes. But when they speak that opinion out loud and it's putting someone else in danger, something needs to be done about that. That needs to be reported. And so, there are so many different ways that people can kind of go about those types of things. That's what I would do in a professional setting. And I'd hope that, my manager or leadership does something about that person to keep them in check, or let them know that this, your point of view, that that's just not part of our values. You're looking down on an entire community. That's not okay. That's not what we do here. Exactly. So some action needs to be taken regardless. Now, if this is a personal setting, like I said, I really don't like engaging with people like that. I don't want to sit here and teach people on why I deserve to be treated fairly. I am a human, and if you don't see me as so, then, I don't have any business, talking to you. And that's what I say now. Now, if I'm in a position where if I'm like in person with someone who happens to say this, I don't know how I'd react. It really depends.
Right. You know what? I know you've seen as many of these videos as I have, and I'm going to be honest with you. You really would have to do a whole lot in order for me to feel like I need to have a rebuttal. Mm-hmm. I don't want to use the term lash out because that's not who I am, but you'd have to really press some buttons. Now, I am a mother of 3 daughters. If you are an individual and I was present and you did something to my daughters, that's on a whole nother level. Mm-hmm. So it is difficult to determine how you would react or respond in an environment. And in some of the situations that I've seen, it makes it very difficult. Now you have individuals who feel like, well, they're expressing their personal feelings. As you've mentioned, they have a right to express who they are, what they feel, and this or that. But those feelings are not compartmentalized. Even though you might have been expressing that on your own time, you are still a representative of whatever organization or company or business. You are still representing them, most times. When you make these things known publicly and you're working for a company, whether or not you're in a position of power or a position that you have the ability to make changes, The fact that I'm sitting next to you every day and I can refer to a publicly posted video or comment, and I have to look at you every day knowing that this is how you feel about me and people who look like me, that does make the environment hostile. Now, why these individuals have felt so comfortable to just give you the business, I don't know. But you are correct. A lot of these people have been able to do all of these things or have had to bottle these feelings and these expressions for so long. And now they've let them out. But most of them are used to not having any accountability. They're able to keep their jobs. They're even able to get promotions. Yeah. And that's where things have to change when it comes to company. If you're going to enforce a policy, then they need to be enforced. No one should ever work or be anywhere and feel threatened or unwelcomed. Exactly. Something definitely has to be done. Now, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on that, although it's kind of hard not to. I searched the word ethnicity or ethnic group. And the definition of that is a grouping of people who identify with each other on the basis of shared attributes that distinguish them from other groups, such as a common set of traditions, ancestry, language, history, society, culture, nature, religion, or social treatment within their residing area. I really don't like being called ethnic, if you will. But, you have all of these terms that are being thrown around for people of color. I'm in a point now where I'm just really tired of being identified by the color of my skin. I want to be able to live this life and just be able to live and be who I am. I'm Jamila. Accept me for who I am. And everywhere I go, it's exhausting to have to try to explain who you are, why you act the way you are, just solely based on my skin. I noticed on Twitter, it's been some time ago, but I noticed that you addressed a comment about your ethnicity. How does it make you feel to have to defend yourself or the right to speak on certain?
Obviously it's angering. I am my own person. I know who I am. I know where I come from. I know the experiences that I've lived. And I honestly don't, it angers me, that's like as far as I can put it. But I know that this is the world we live in, and reality is sometimes I may have to explain who I am, and I'm going to have to identify as, what I look like, what my skin color is, my hair texture, my features. I'm going to have to explain certain things sometimes. Or I don't have to, I may choose to. Because unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. Do I like it? No. But for me, I'm just like, all right, well, this is reality, and I'm just going to have to adhere to society sometimes. And those things that they try to make normal, the norm or setting the narrative for us. Well, I'm in agreement with you on that. Now, you too are a parent. Has it been difficult for you to explain all of the events that took place in 2020 for your child? Because normally these are things, what we saw existing in 2020 are things that we generally would refer to a book, or if we were watching a documentary. We've been able to kind of live a little comfortable without having to address these things head on, per se. Has it been easy or difficult to try to, if your son had questions, answering his questions? Yeah. So, there's like different questions. It's hard because he's 8 years old. So we're living through a pandemic. George Floyd was murdered. We're going through another time of movement and fighting for justice in an unjust government and system. So explain the pandemic, there's a virus going around, people are getting really sick, they can die. Like, I think that was a lot simpler to explain to my son. Now, when it comes to talking about racism, prejudice, being anti-Black, the justice system, that was really difficult because my son just didn't have a really good understanding. But like at the time he was 7, now he's 8. But just recently he had an assignment for Martin Luther King Day where he had to read a short story on slavery and how segregation and kind of moving up to today. He had to read a story about it and answer a few multiple choice questions. And he was asking me just more in depth about slavery and racism and things like that. And for me, I was struggling between, I wanted to be very honest, which can be kind of brutal. It's the brutal truth. But then I'm like, okay, he's 8. I don't want him to run back to his white friends in school and saying, kind of just, I don't know what he would say. I don't know what he would say to them, but I have to like tell him, white people, white Americans treated Black and brown people this way. And they still do to this day. And I like explaining that to him and then trying to figure out the right way to go about it. It's hard. It is hard. And I feel like I will do better when he's older and he has a good understanding and, he can kind of control his reactions to it, or he doesn't know how to react to it. So it's just been, I can't even answer this question because it's just so difficult.
I know it is. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it's because it's hard with younger children because one, you don't want to instill anxiety. You don't want them to, and then at the other, because they are so young and they're still developing and they still really and truly have, some of them have not had all of these experiences, but at the same personally to have a real opinion or form an opinion about it or even identify it, honestly. But because we're watching the news and they're getting glances of the news and some children are exposed to a little bit more than others. So as parents, you kind of have to, I've got to tell my kid this because this kid brought it up in school or maybe a play date. I mean, not that we're doing that as much now, but, or an assignment. And you just haven't had the mental preparation yourself to how am I going to address these issues?
Right. Yeah.
How do I help them answer these questions? Because it's a school assignment. I can't overlook it.
Right.
It is important for them to know about their history, but man, it puts everyone in such an awkward position.
It really is. Like I was at a crossroads. I'm like, do I sit down and really explain every little detail? How is he going to react to that? How is he going to feel? How is he going to look at, his classmates, his teachers? Is he going to say something? Is he going to become really angry? And then we have, family members who are police officers, what is he going to say to them? So
oh my goodness, yeah.
I'm like, okay, I need to, I don't know. I feel like I gave him the really sweet version of things, or not sweet, but the less brutally honest. But when he gets older, I want to be very transparent with him. And the thing is, I have these conversations with our family members out loud. So he'll be in the next room. So there have been times where I'd say things and I'd say like, white people. And then he'd come over and be like, what about white people? Or I would say something about police officers. He's like, hey, Mima is a police officer. And it's like, he's naming his family members who are police officers. He's like, what about them? And I'm just like, oh my God, like he soaks up everything. He's a sponge. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So it's been hard.
My goodness. Now my daughters are all adults now. So there's no way I would know how to even begin that conversation. Now, clearly, you do the best you can to answer the question as unbiased as possible. And if they do have a question in response to the information you just provided, then Oh my gosh, that is hard.
Yeah,
I feel,
it is.
but it's good. At least you have, he knows that you are approachable. And if he does have a question, the best place for our children to get information firsthand, we want them to get the right information and set the right expectation for them, because there's so much information out there and it's overwhelming. And a child, you want children to be able to stay innocent and be innocent.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Unfortunately, things so much plays out on TV and in conversations, as you state. And children, they have questions and we have to have an answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I would love advice from others who have done it with children that young. But yeah, that's what I'm saying, like keeping that innocence and making sure that he doesn't profile people based on the color of their skin because of the information you provided, that's where I'm at a crossroads. And I know that eventually he's going to learn about the way the world is. And at that point, I'll be able to provide, that real information where I can really sit him down and tell him, this is the history. This is how things are. This is what we're fighting for. I look forward to the day I can actually have that conversation with him where he'll have a better understanding as, someone who's more mature and can really understand the information being given.
And process it in a manner which, you're not creating these little individuals who are biased themselves and harbor some of these same feelings that maybe we have now as parents, or that we've witnessed other people who actually have been taught these things at these at this young age. And they've just grown up to be these very angry, hateful, I don't know, there's all kinds of adjectives I could use, but that's what we want to avoid doing. But I commend you for definitely trying. It's keeping those lines of communication open, and know as a parent, we're never really sure that the things we're doing, did we set the right example for them? Did I say the right thing? But you have to try, you definitely have to try.
Yeah. You see where it gets you. It actually reminds me of when I was younger. Our family was close friends with a white family. And they had 3 daughters. So we were children always playing together when we would go over each other's houses. And I remember one of the little girls came up to me and she was like, my dad said we have to treat Black people equally and be nice to everyone, regardless of the color of their skin. And yeah, that's true. But me hearing it as a Black little girl, I'm just like, what? Right. I'm like, why are you telling me this? Like, why can't you just go about the day without, I don't know. It was just very strange for me. And so it's what I'm saying is, while people can mean well, things can just be perceived differently. And all we can really do, again, is try, and you'll find out what methods work and what methods don't, Yeah,
definitely. Oh my gosh. You know what? Every time I have a discussion with someone, I really would love to talk about other things. And it's, I had a conversation with someone else and during an interview, and I'm just like, it's sad that we, as I'll say Black people, but people of color, or considered to be some sort of ethnic group. If you're not white, you're other.
Right.
It's just sad that this is a universal discussion. You really can't go through a day, even if it's within your family, your close knit of friends, or your co-workers. It's interesting that just through a full day, you don't avoid this type of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's always in your face, and people say you have to laugh or joke about it to keep from being stressed or upset. But it would be nice for this not to be the focal point of your daily life.
Right.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. There hasn't been one day that's gone by where I'm not hearing about being Black, race, diversity, equity, inclusion, people of color. There's not one day that goes by where it's not going to be a topic.
And it's
you
like
know.
we have so many other things to discuss. I had an interview. I have a relative. I have several relatives, and my family is very diverse. And I had a very candid conversation with her. She actually is. I interviewed her for the podcast as well, and she was just expressing to me, it being a biracial child, how difficult it was for her and very hurtful experiences and things that she saw. For instance, she was mentioning when she and her siblings, and there's four of them, three girls and one boy, when they were out with their mother, who is Caucasian or white, how her mother would be harassed. They called the police on her, or they would approach her and insult her and ask her, let her know that she was a disgrace to the white race. Can you imagine? Well, I don't know, but being 3 or 4 or 5 or even 8, and everywhere you go, your mother is harassed.
That is so
That's traumatic.
wild. It is. That's crazy.
Now, she mentioned that being with her father, it was totally different. Now, her father is my cousin. He's a black male. And when he's with the kids, they don't attack him. Oh, your kids are beautiful. Oh, you are so lucky to have biracial children. Wow. It's just, she's scarred. Well, I won't say she's scarred, but those are things that they aren't very easily to overcome.
Right. No. And I hear, so, I mean, that's awful to be a child and hearing that as you're going out with your own mother. I've heard that story when it comes to like mixed couples, so black and white couples going out in public, and whoever is white in the relationship getting harassed for being with having a black partner. That's actually something that's very common, and it's disgusting.
Well, I mean, it's those people's choices and those individuals, and as long as that couple is okay with their arrangement, their marriage, their relationship, it really isn't for us or an outsider to judge. Now, I'm not saying you don't have your personal feelings. You can feel however you want to, but you cross a line when you harass or berate someone else for something that you just may not agree with. Now, if we're having a discussion, then I'm open to a discussion, but don't come at me.
Right. No. And that should show you how much hatred there is. Like, you're willing to publicly harass people because literally it's because of the color of someone's skin. It's crazy.
It really is. That's it. It is the color of someone's skin, my skin, and it's light versus dark. That is all it is. And I'm just like, wow. But to go on, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. A lot of people believe that I'm black, so all I can do is tell you about the black experience, right? But we're constantly told that we're lazy. Some people believe that racism and bias are necessary because it's the reason we are who we are. If things didn't exist, if this didn't exist, this mentality, this would play into black people being lazy.
What?
Exactly.
That doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't, but I've had that posed to me because they think by nature we're lazy. They think that we can't learn things. Our understanding is different. We are, of course, lower on the development chain. So this is necessary to encourage your people or people like you, because otherwise, if we didn't challenge you and let you know that there was a difference between us, you'd be nothing.
Okay, well, let's go back. So let's talk about Black people, slavery, and free labor. Who are the ones working hard while these white people are sitting on their porch watching? Us. Now let's talk about how slavery set us back, 400 years in education? So yeah, we're still catching up. Then let's talk about redlining. We can't get the same property. It's, we're having difficulty in real estate and ownership due to white people, once again, trying to again, it's just like holding us back. Then there's like racism and bias in the workplace. They're purposely keeping us out and only networking within their own communities and giving opportunities to people in their own communities, leaving us out. And of course, they're the ones in leadership positions because yes, they are ahead in terms of, you know, they had that head start, unfortunately. And that's why they are where they are. So yes, Black people are still trying to catch up as a community. As for, you know, talking about individuals, they're like, you can't speak for every Black person. Every Black person is on their own journey. They've had their own successes. You know, they're also up there as at the top of the pyramid where they can come down and grab the rest of the community and bring them up there. Like none of this is necessary. None of it was necessary. But that's just what happened to fall into place due to white supremacy. So they're really to blame. I don't really understand. I'm just going to say, I think that's stupid. I think that is so dumb. I don't know why someone would think that way or believe that. It doesn't make sense to me. Things fell into place the way they did due to, once again, like white people purposely holding us back, and they continue to do so, or they at least continue to try. So I don't know. That's my response to that. I don't know.
It's crazy, but think about all the things that they say to justify what they're doing. None of it really makes sense. But again, when you're someone who is spinning a narrative, or you're someone who really and truly believe that you are superior, you believe this wholeheartedly. It doesn't matter what you say. The point is I'm trying to hold my spot. You're not better than me. So they can spin and say whatever they want to. There is no accountability to it. It doesn't have to make sense. It's irrational. The fact of the matter is, I'm better than you.
Right.
You are. You're not on my level, so I can say whatever I want to.
Yeah. I see. Yeah. I mean, so that can be how they perceive whatever they want to perceive. For me, it's like you literally had a head start by cheating, and you were scared. All right. You were scared of the community that you try to keep back and leave behind. And yeah, I don't really commend you for being where you are. You had a head start. And for us who did not have a head start and still made it, that's who I commend. That's who I give a round of applause to, because that's extremely impressive. And so, I mean, say what you want. I don't really give a damn.
Exactly. And you know what, Parris, Athena, thank you so much, because you've made this conversation it's real. And the intent is to be candid. And the reminder of the podcast on a daily, my whole goal is one, I'm going to start my hashtag, and it's going to be speaking with purpose. So, because there's a lot of nonsense out there, but the whole point in this is to empower us as a people. I don't care if you're male or female. There's so much out there to make you feel as if you truly and really are incapable of reaching the limits. The sky is literally the limit. And even beyond the sky, there are the stars. So all of us are being sold this story or this narrative that we really and truly don't belong in certain spaces. We really and truly do not have the intelligence. And because of that one drop of blood, that makes you less than me, who I am considered to be pure, rightly own everything that we've acquired. Although you acquired it by theft,
right?
In death, you stole it. You were ingenuine in how you obtained what you have. And I'm not saying everybody is like that, so I don't want to paint that picture either. My main purpose is, as Black people, do not be discouraged. Yes, we got the tail end of the stick. Yes, we're at the bottom of the totem pole, but there is nothing that is keeping you or me, our family, from being successful. Right. Generational wealth. I see that a lot on Twitter, and I believe in that. But it starts with one individual changing their mind and not succumbing to all of this negative. Well, it's really lies.
Right.
Untruths about what you are capable of, who you are, and not having a sense of pride in yourself.
Right. Yeah. So I always like, regardless of, what society says, regardless of the type of world we live in, I don't think that's a good excuse to hold yourself back from chasing your goals, achieving your dreams, and being successful. Will you have hurdles that others won't? Yeah, most likely. But that just makes the success that much sweeter. I definitely think you should go for it. And let those who say things that are negative, that try to keep you down or keep you back and stop you from chasing your dreams, let those types of comments fuel you and speed you up to the finish line.
Yeah, let that be the motivation, definitely. Well, normally I have you do that at the very end, but this is as good a spot as any to offer a sense of encouragement. We are winding down on the interview. What I would like to do so that individuals who are hearing you today, Parris, Athena, where can they find you, follow you? Give us all of those.
Yep. So you can follow Black Tech Pipeline at BT Pipeline on Twitter and Instagram. You can find our website at www.blacktechpipeline.com. Me personally, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and literally everywhere else at Parris with 2 S's, Parris Athena.
Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I really, really and truly appreciate you for being so open and transparent today about what the purpose of Black Tech Pipeline has been and the inspiration behind Black Tech Twitter. If it wasn't for individuals like yourself sharing your expertise, sharing your making opportunities available for others who, again, would not have been aware of different opportunities, positions, or just purposes. Thank you so much for creating these pipelines and hashtags for the rest of us. Continued success. You're welcome back on the podcast at any time. Please stay safe.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time. This is an amazing podcast, so I'd love to come back on.
I appreciate it. Thank you. You're welcome back anytime. We've come to the close of another episode of the End User Talk podcast. I hope that what you've heard today will leave you feeling empowered. Thank you for listening. And remember, every day's a training day.